Hello, YouTube divers. This is Water Dive 122, and I want to welcome you all to another episode of Magic Metal Mondays. We're going to be reviewing yet another Savatage album, and believe me, guys, this is the last Savatage album album review as of right now, because I will be getting into other bands down the road. But this is the last of the three albums that I've re-listened to from Savatage, of Hall of Mountain King, Handful of Rain, and Gutter Ballet. Yes, I am going to be talking about Gutter Ballet. So, Gutter Ballet. This album came out in December, I think it was December, yeah. December 1st, 1989, via Atlantic Records. And this album, in terms of its background, is a very great and amazing album. So a little bit of backstory before we get into the album itself. So 2 years earlier, the band had released Hall of the Mountain King. And as you already know, that album is basically a masterpiece. From top to bottom, that album is, Hall of the Mountain King is basically a masterpiece. If you want more of my opinion on that album, I made a whole album review of Hall of the Mountain King on episode 23. Yeah, episode 23. You could go check that out if you want to, and then maybe come back here. But Gutter Ballet, this is a interesting, in a good way, album. This record definitely is a step down compared to Hall of the Mountain King. If you remember from my Savatage rankings, I placed this album at number 4, behind Power of the Night, Hall of the Mountain King, and of course Edge of Thorns, respectively. Even though Gutter Ballet is not my favorite Savatage record, it is still a freaking kick-butt album. And this is really the first album where Savatage really started to flirt with their musical symphonic metal ways that we would get on the ensuing albums, and especially on the album that followed this one, Streets, a Rock Opera, which came out in 1991. This album basically is a combination of Savatage's past work and a foreshadowing of Savatage's future stuff. Like, this is the perfect balance in between the two styles that Savatage was basically known for, like their thrashier side and their more symphonic side combined together as one. And that's what makes this album so interesting to me, because generally I'm not crazy about symphonic metal. Now, I don't hate the genre by any stretch. It's just the album it's just the metal genre that kind of fascinates me the least compared to all the other metal genres, with a few exceptions. It's just one of those genres that, I just am not tend to come back to. Like, I'm not crazy about Nightwish. I'm not really that crazy about Within Temptation, bands like that. It's just not really for me. It's just not really there for me yet. But when you talk about bands like later Savatage, and of course Trans-Siberian Orchestra, and bands like that, then I'm all up for it. And Gutter Ballet is basically where this whole theatrical musical renaissance of Savatage basically started. With a lot of these songs on this track. Like, they started including more keyboards, like more piano parts on this record. They started including like string sections, symphony parts on this record. There was more kind of operatic lyrics from John Oliva. There was more lyrical guitar solos from Chris Oliva. And of course, the album cover alone basically tells you what type of album this will be. I mean, for one thing, I absolutely love the album cover for Gutter Ballet. It's personally one of my all-time favorite Savatage album covers. it's just an amazing and interesting album cover for that matter. All right, now let's get into the tracks. The opening track is Of Rage and War, and I've said this on another Savatage album review when I was talking about their Hall of the Mountain King album. Um, at the end of the Hall of the Mountain King album, there was a song called Devastation. It's personally one of my favorite songs from that album. And Devastation and Of Rage and War has basically the same main riff, like with with of course different tempos, different styles, and of course different choruses and things like that. But these two riffs sound very similar to one another, and usually I get mixed up on which one is which because they sound that identical to me. Like if you listen to those two songs back to back, you'll see what I mean. But getting back to Of Rage and War, Of Rage and War is a very dark and heavy song on here. It's one of the heaviest songs on the album, and it's one of my favorites for that matter. And personally, I like Savatage better at their darkest and heaviest. Hence why I like albums like Handful of Rain and Edge of Thorns and Hall of the Mountain King for that matter, and Power of the Night as well. For that matter. And Of Rage and War is really a good example of the thrash, like the unique thrash metal sound that they had. And that song basically gets you thinking, maybe are we going to get another album like Hall of the Mountain King? And then we go into track 2, which is the title track, Gutter Ballet. And personally, it is my favorite song on this record. I never get tired of this track. I love it so freaking much. It's a great track. And this is really the first song by Savatage on any of their albums to flirt with that symphonic metal sound. Like we get piano parts in there for the first time. We get string sections in there, like specifically in between Chris Oliva's solos, like midway through the song. It's great. And of course, John Oliva is singing in that theatrical musical style that I'm generally not a huge fan of, but John Oliva is one of my all-time favorite vocalists, and he does it so well. He still has that unique voice that he has had all throughout Savatage's career, and of course, he still has it these days, which makes him one of the most consistent singers in my books. And then after Gutter Ballet, we have one of two instrumentals. The first instrumental is called Temptation Revelation. And honestly, this is out of the two instrumentals that are on this record, this one is my favorite. Simply because of Chris Oliva's amazing guitar work on this song. And of course, John Oliva beautifully compliments Chris Oliva on the piano. It's such a great instrumental. And then you follow that song up with the powerful, godlike power ballad that is When the Crowds Are Gone. This is my second favorite song on the album behind the title track. I've recently just warmed up to this song, and I absolutely adore it. It is so freaking amazing. I love that song. And then we have another instrumental, which kind of is like a farewell to the first side of the album, Silken Steel, which in my opinion is the last song on the first side of Gutter Ballet. And I honestly think it's the perfect interlude between the first side, because you've already gone through amazing stuff on the first side, and then Silken Steel comes on, and then you're ready, then you're taking a break, you're relaxing, and then you're like, and then when the song ends, you're like, okay, what's on the second side? So, well, let's talk about the second side. Track number 6 is She Is in Love. And this definitely brings back like a lot of the lovey-dovey type of stuff that they were doing on Fight for the Rock, which came out in 1986. Generally, I'm not a terribly big fan of these types of songs. It's like your typical 80s thrash metal love song, if you can even call it a love song, which, let's be honest, I don't really think you can. Um, but yeah, She's in Love is a really, 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 really great track. It's not really one of my favorites on the album, but it's still a great track nonetheless. I like that song a lot. And then that follows it up with the longest track on the album, Hounds, at 6.5 minutes long. Hounds is a very interesting song, especially that intro, which is so dark and creepy. And ironically, this is one of the heaviest songs on the album. And again, I like Savatage when at their most darkest and heaviest, even though I'm not big on their first album, or even though I'm not a huge fan of their debut album. Um, yeah, I love Hounds. Probably it's within my top 5 favorite songs of this album. I just love that clean guitar riff from Chris Oliva, and of course John Oliva does an amazing job on vocals, not just here but on the entire album in general. And then we move on to what I consider to be the most heaviest track on the album, and that is the thrash metal anthem that is the Unholy. Oh my goodness, the Unholy basically has a riff that reminds me a lot of early Metallica / Megadeth. It is just so heavy and so punchy when the chorus hits and that riff plays. The way Chris Oliva plays it is just so heavy hitting. I love that song simply because of that riff alone. It's just, oh my gosh, it's a great song. And then we take a little bit of a step down with the next track on here. That is the song Mentally Yours. Now, I'd say this song is just all right. I do think that it is the weakest track on the album, mainly because I'm not a big fan of the chorus of this song. It's just the words "mentally yours," "I'm mentally yours," repeated over and over again, and I really don't like the way John Oliva sings it. Um, Usually I don't mind John Oliva singing in this style, but when he's repeating like "mentally yours, I'm mentally yours," yeah, when he's singing it like that, it just sounds like that he's singing it to like 5 to 6 year olds, like children that are in kindergarten or first grader for that matter. I know I'm probably gonna be criticized about that, but it is what it is, I guess. But that song follows up with the beautiful power ballad that is Summer's Rain. I absolutely love that song, and it's another one of my favorite songs on the record. It is a super strong song, and that chorus, oh my goodness, that chorus is brilliant. It is so freaking awesome. I love the chorus to Summer's Rain. It is personally one of my favorite Savatage choruses of all time, if you can even say that's even a thing. And then lastly, but certainly not least, what many fans consider to be the best song on the album and one of the best songs by Savatage, the Thorazine Shuffle. This closes off the album, and I'd say this song bids this album a positive farewell. That song, Thorazine Shuffle, is just so freaking heavy. And once again, the way how John Oliva sings that chorus, it blows me away every time I listen to that song. It is so freaking amazing. I love Thorazine Shuffle. It's a really great closure. And album-wise, I do think that it is a nice send-off for of Gutter Ballet. And, a great, preview for Street. It's a rock opera, which is the album that came after it. Now, before we get to my final rating, we are going to be talking about the production of this record. The production on this album basically reminds me a lot of Megadeth's Rust in Peace, which came out a year later in 1990, as pretty much all of you know by now. And whenever I listen to Gutter Ballet, I always think of the original production of Rust in Peace, because these two records, in terms of sound quality and production, are not really that different. Now, of course, when it comes to style, the bands who were performing this and so much more stuff, these are two completely different albums. But if you listen to them closely, like if you listen to the production, Gutter Ballet basically has the same type of production as Rust in Peace. Maybe Megadeth might have been influenced by Savatage's production on Gutter Ballet, because, as I said, these two records basically sound the same production-wise. You know, it's another thing that makes Gutter Ballet so interesting to me. It's just, you know. Now, with that said, I do think that John Oliva sounds absolutely amazing on this album. Chris Oliva has some of his best guitar solos on here, and of course the rhythm duo of Johnny Lee Middleton and Steve Wachholtz. It's just great, and of course this is my favorite lineup of Savatage. So there you go. So with that said, my final rating of Gutter Ballet would be a solid 9 out of 10. The only reason why I'm not giving it a 10 out of 10 is because of the chorus in Mentally Yours. Like, if they redid that chorus on Mentally Yours, chances are this album would have been a perfect 10 out of 10. But, you know, and also in my opinion, like, if they trimmed down a little bit on Hounds, I feel like Hounds is a little bit too long. Just a little bit. Maybe, like, cut off maybe 15 or 20 seconds of it. That's just my own personal opinion. But if they did all of that, if they did, like, some fixing of this record, like minor tweaks here and there, this would have probably been a perfect 10 out of 10 record for me. But it's a 9 out of 10. Still a solid album from start to finish. And this is one of those albums that I will be returning back to whenever I decide to re-listen to Savatage's albums again. So with that said, that concludes this edition of Magic Metal Mondays. Thank you so much for watching, my fellow YouTube divers. This is Water Eye 122 signing out, ready to dive into more fun on YouTube. Thanks for watching.